Very, very much aware, as Damon's just spoken to, of the day-to-day and the immediate and the growing, persistent, unmet housing need in your communities, and it's sometimes a challenge to bridge that gap between the here, the now, the urgent, and the profoundly important of looking to the horizon. I got in trouble last night with Minister Bishop because of a comment I made to Simon Wilson yesterday, saying that I thought it was a bad idea in the middle of a housing crisis switching off one of the largest producers of new residential housing in the form of Kāinga Ora. And again, I tripped myself up a little bit because I forget that even the 1,500 places, because he reminded me, actually we're exclusively backing the community sector at the moment, they are for 26, 27, which is quite a long way towards Jackie's horizon there. And so the sequencing of our activities is also important as we keep an eye on the future and chart our course whilst also addressing the very present and real needs. So for an update, Professor John Tookey, please, on the residential construction market. Really grateful for your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. So I'll preface this by saying I think I've won the award for the loudest shirt. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, it was one of those moments. I was driving into work this morning, and I you know that niggly thought when you're thinking, I've left something. Jacket. Okay, I'm going to preface this couple of things. One, a couple of weeks ago, we lost a great friend and mentor of myself by the name of Tony Lanigan, who was the first Chancellor of AUT. And he was also a warrior for social justice and also for the Habitat New Zealand and also Habitat International he was working for, and the Housing Foundation as well. So I just thought I'd make reference to that. He's a great man, and we miss him greatly already. I need to tell you a story. A few weeks ago, well, months ago actually, I was sitting on Rarotonga. I was wearing this shirt, contemplating a gin and tonic, as you do. But because I'm a dedicated academic who always is you know, on call 24/7, like a coiled cobra ready to strike, I was checking my email and processing applications and all that sort of stuff, as you do. And I got an email. Yes, I know, it's a shock. But I got an email. I will read it to you. Even now, it makes you angry. Your comment about the current government flooding the market with houses not affecting the market because of inelastic demand is embarrassing for you. Heady stuff. In fact, I'm embarrassed for you. How does the National Party pay you to lie to the public, to show to push their agenda for the rich? I hope all of your Econ 101 students shame you and show you that even in the simplest terms, you're easily proven wrong and clearly a government shill. Shame on you. Now, let me fill in the blanks at this point. Needless to say, I looked up this guy, and he's a government economist. I won't say which ministry, because you might find him. Anyhow, I was not impressed. It was raining, it was cold. The water in the pool was not warm. I was not happy. And actually, it rained for 10 days. I was fizzing. Anyway, I started the response. I do not know who you are. However, your sanctimonious tone does not lead me to particularly seek your acquaintance. However, notwithstanding which, I will reply. Assuming you were talking about this article, and I went on to quote, and I spent an awful lot of time pointing out the fact that the comments he was referring to was to a journalist. I spent a lot of time doing media commentary. And they limit things. They don't give you the full information. They don't give you the full facts and figures. And obviously, as an academic, I give chapter and verse, and then they cherry pick the sound bites. Got another response. Same guy. Apologies for the terse tone. I'm not fond of economists being so lazy when talking about subjects that are of utmost importance. Again, he was being sanctimonious, just saying. I should have been more respectful of one who gives his time to develop the next generation, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I had to explain to him that, yes, there was inelasticity in demand and an inelasticity in supply. The reason being that you cannot, at the drop of a hat, expect production to take place. The building market doesn't work that way. The market does not respond and react so quickly. It just doesn't. Over the course of the last couple of years, as the market has been progressively crushed by increasing interest rates, we've seen a collapse in numbers of people who are actually working. You don't see the companies going out of business, but people do actually withdraw from. I was just in mid-flow then. I have to say, it doesn't look very impressive compared to that litany of titles that the minister had yesterday. I was very impressed by that. 6 jobs, 6? I just feel I'm an underachiever. Anyhow. So I got doubled down on this, and I got stuck into him again. Thank you for your more measured tone. I find ad hominem accusations, particularly unfounded ones, are not particularly helpful. Firstly, I'm not a lazy economist. I mean, calling somebody an economist in the morning, I mean, that's terrible. I've got a life. I speak about real things. Nor do I aspire to be one. I'm a pragmatic engineer who has a lot of experience in the building market in New Zealand historically. And I carried on to explain exactly how the market lacks elasticity. We grant consents or resource consents for development of a site, and then it sits there, and it sits there, and it sits there, because inertia is bottom line what takes place. We have to get the residual value. We have to extract it. And even when we've developed the land, dewatered the land, we've created the conditions where the infrastructure is put in place, it still sits there, adding value, okay? And it will continue to do that. And even when it's released to the market, only a handful of sections are actually for sale in order to sustain things. So economists thinking that more land equates to more houses are dreaming. It doesn't work that way. All you've done is create a larger land bank. That's how it works. Anyhow, I achieved victory in my email battle with this lunatic. He came back to me with, and I quote, "I will take a further step backward and offer my sincere apologies." True, I've got the email chain, I've got it pinned on the wall. "You have proven me wrong, and now I'm embarrassed for me." That's what I'm talking about. However, given your very generous responses, I am glad to have heard from you. Thank you kindly, and please know my misplaced and inappropriate passionate response comes from a place of deep caring that is absolutely furious over seeing blatant incompetence mixed with cash grabs for the rich. Bless you, John. I don't deserve the time you took, but I am grateful you did. I think he did well. Climbed down, it was all good. I had a gin and tonic. The point is, ladies and gents, we have some people who desperately care about what's going on in the real world, for sure, no question. But at the same time, they're not necessarily cognizant of actually what's happening down here in the real world as the building industry operates. It just doesn't work that way. There is a massive disconnect between the realities of the building industry, and that's what I'm in the business of advocating for. You know, we're dealing with a finite set of people who have an optimism bias. They want to help you. But the problem they have is they've been massively undercapitalized and massively underinvested in for years. How do we respond rapidly and consistently and comprehensively? Well, actually, I think if you'll find anybody, they'll typically talk in terms of doing prefabrication and off-site construction, right? how are any of these maintained in the downtimes? We've seen 2 years of downtimes. And the answer is they're not. There's all sorts of prefab providers who are more than happy to step up, but they need upfront investment. And by the way, standing up an entire building industry after you've knocked it down doesn't work that way. We've seen 2 years of elevated interest rates, and we need to recognize the fact that the building industry works on borrowed money. As money is borrowed, so construction takes place. Without borrowed money, doesn't happen. You increase the costs of interest rates, we don't build ahead of the market. That's not how it works. The only way that we are going to address the deficit that we have, and by the way, ladies and gents, to talk it into context, we're talking about potentially here in Auckland alone, as many as between 400 and 600,000 additional souls that we're going to have to find space for. We're dealing with 19th century infrastructure, 20th century architecture, and 21st century aspirations. There are as many as 300,000 additional homes that are going to be required to make good on the damage associated with climate change. Now, if you believe that climate change is a thing, and I'm not saying it's not, obviously, then you've also got to start planning for those 300,000 additional homes that need to be found to replace the ones that are going to get inundated on the coastal margins. So we've got a hill to climb, to say the least. Just to follow up on my point about the economist, they're not necessarily the cognoscenti, and not necessarily are we getting the sorts of insights that we need from these folks. I would say yesterday, the housing minister, apart from having an extraordinarily long CV of jobs, generally said some very good things, but at the same time, how far did it go? If you think about the suggestion to underwrite the 30-home development thing to make sure that they get built, sounds good, right? And I have to say, yeah, it is, absolutely, it's good, unadulterated. How many projects are actually in the category of 30 to 40 homes that you see? There ain't many, right? The vast majority of home development, or any sort of home developments, they're all in the 1s and 2s, 3s and 4s category. They're not in the 30s to 40s. So how much difference will that actually make? More land is not the only solution. We've heard this mantra before, more land, more land, more land. Previous governments, lots of previous governments, they all come out with the same stuff, right? Remember the special housing areas? You remember those? Got the special housing areas, all gets consented. Great. And then what happens in terms of the actual build? All the big sections on the peripheries get built out first because you make more money out of those as a builder. We need to start incentivizing people to make the high-density homes. And that means that we're going to have to put the thumb on the scale. The market will not provide, because the market will typically go to wherever the most money is made. That's the nature of what markets are. So you've got to make the choice of either putting your thumb on the scale and increasing the profitability of that sector of the market, or alternatively, you have to put in effect a state-owned asset to do the job that the regular market doesn't do. I'm not advocating for any one or the other. I'm advocating for realism. We need to incentivize the use of land. What would happen, for example, if consent had a use-by date? Use it or lose it. Or alternatively, use it, or alternatively, if you're not going to use it immediately, then you're going to have to reapply for consent. Would that make a difference? We need to front-end it. We need to drive it. Otherwise, the market will react slowly and in lag to where the demand is. And it will continue to do that. Over the course of the last 2 years, many construction tradespeople who are essential, in the absence of factory-constructed housing, we're totally reliant and dependent on tradies. But tradies are uniformly getting older. They're in the mid to late 50s on average for most trades. Not only are they getting older, but they're now, over the course of the last 2 years, they've retired. They've moved out of it because they can't make any money. Now, in the absence of a major push to recruit from offshore, which has its own issues, obviously, how are you going to get people back into the business now they've moved out of it? Because these are the people who are going to need to step up in order to deliver on your demands. And we need to think that one through. In the event that that's not going to be a case, then we need to think really long term. We're going to have to start pushing trade skills training, and all the stuff associated with BCITO and similar. And we need to start pushing it as a good career, sexy career to get into, because otherwise we're not going to rebuild this, not in any time that's going to happen quickly. Looking at the numbers, looking at how things are going, we've got interest rate announcements coming up that could see, cuts in interest rates and will continue, and that's good. But look around the world at the moment. Look at Ukraine. Look at the Middle East. Potential for the Israelis to kick it off with Iran. What would happen at that point? How fast do you think those interest rate changes are going to go backwards? Right now, if you're in business looking at putting a market proposition for a major development in place, how much debt do you want to take on board? Or are you looking at deleveraging yourself? I would contend that a lot of companies are looking to deleverage and step back from investments until things settle down in the global economy. One last point, because I'm doing something I don't normally do. I'm working from notes. And by the way, my apologies for looking over my glasses at you, because I can't see. Normally, when I'm giving a presentation in this room, I can look at there, I can look up here, and it's big enough for me to read. But now, I can't do that. As we look forward, we've got this probably a couple of years to stand back up the building industry. So it's going to take that sort of length of time to reestablish itself. Remember, we've gone from 40 to 50,000 consents for housing or dwellings per year, and it's dropped off to 10, 12, 15. That's a huge step down, right? It takes time to redo. Oh, and by the way, all the previous 40 to 50,000 that were being consented, they're still in the works because they ain't been built. Just the simple lag effects associated with doing business, right? So it's going to take time, ladies and gents. The market is not going to react rapidly, irrespective. You could go to any one of the builders out there who currently is showing themselves, and you could give them a contract today, and they will be struggling to put a team in the field within 3 months to 4 months. And that, unfortunately, is the reality of where we sit at the moment. One last thing I'd say is cross-party support needs to be put in place, and we need to start looking at the infrastructural investments that were alluded to yesterday in terms of roading and indeed power and all the other things that are out there constraining things. I look at the moment, there's several cases in West Auckland where we actually have a scenario where houses have been constructed on new developments, and the night soil, toilet waste, is being removed by tanker, basically going back to pre-Health Act 1875 situation where people are getting their night soil removed by hand, in effect. And that's simply because of the lack of infrastructure in place. So we need to take that out, and we need to start thinking in terms of multi-party support for long-term infrastructural investment, but that's my sort of personal thing. Anyway, don't look at me as though I've just been the bringer of doom. I've tried to come here with my happy shirt on and entertain to a certain degree. However, we have to be realistic, ladies and gents, and that's what I'm trying to put forward to you here today. For the rest of the time, enjoy the rest of your conference, and I trust you get some really good outcomes accordingly.